Is this in our packet then? If you want to, because I don't remember they added it. Okay.
It was in
Okay.
the packet.
In the amended packet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, at the end of the meeting, I do have a budget document that you all have to sign. So don't
Okay.
leave.
That's if we approve
Good
it,
thing you said something.
Sorry, if you guys approve it, the document.
that we all have to sign. Yeah. So don't leave.
So don't leave.
I'll give. Do you know where that tall guy's at?
In his office.
We can get started.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
All right. It is 1 p.m. Tuesday, December 6th. Time for our regularly scheduled City Commission meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor.
All right. It is Commissioner Roller's turn for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Please bow. Heavenly Father, we pray for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion that allows us to do your will. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that affect the citizens of Garden City. Be with our first responders to keep them safe and continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish is for your glory. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Okay, next up we have approval of the minutes, unless there are any changes. Anybody see any changes we needed?
No, look good.
Okay, then they will stand as approved. Item 5 is public comment. This is a time for the public to come and discuss anything that is not on the agenda. We'll allocate 30 minutes, 5 minutes per person. If you do come up, please state your name. Is there anybody with public comment? Give it a second if anybody's in the back room. No? Okay, we'll move on.
Item 6A, Mayor, you and I would like to take the opportunity to recognize the dedicated service of the following employees who have reached milestones in their service for the city. And if you'll join me up front, I'll grab a handheld mic and we can go through and thank each of these folks one by one. And then I think our communications team would like to take a picture with us and each employee.
Okay.
Matt, can we also request that the staff stick around in the meeting room for a group picture? Those being recognized.
You can request it, they may not. The first person we'd like to recognize is Federico Estrella Penaran. Federico is celebrating 10 years of service with the city in the fleet maintenance department. Congratulations, Federico. Congratulations. Yeah. Take these off. And then you can hold this.
All right, big smiles on 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Congratulations. Officer Jared Stritt is celebrating 10 years of service with the Garden City Police Department in the city of Garden City. Officer Stritt, thank you for your service.
Smiles on 3. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
Tony Hurtado with our water superintendent, also celebrating 10 years of service with the city of Garden City. Tony? You grab the bottom of your card so it won't fall out. Yeah.
We get you a fanny pack.
On 3. 1, 2, 3. Great.
Thank you, Tony. Lucy Mena, and Lucy's celebrating 10 years of service with Service and Finance Department. Congratulations, Lucy. Oops. By the last one, I'll figure that out.
Great. Smiles on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Congratulations, Lucy. Robert Yaden. Robert Yaden is celebrating 10 years of service with the Solid Waste Department. Congratulations, Robert. Let's get that handshake. There you go. And then see, Lynn's holding your cards, so we don't have to pick those up.
Okay. On 3.
Figured it out.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Rhonda Fisher is celebrating 10 years of service with the city. Congratulations, Rhonda.
Picture on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
James Benson. James is celebrating 10 years of service with the Garden City Police Department. Congratulations.
All right. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Raylene Steckline. Raylene is celebrating 20 years of service with the city.
I pretty much.
Yeah, me too.
On 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Rosario Ibarra, celebrating 20 years of service with the city of Garden City.
Right, and then on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Lieutenant Jason Bennett with the Garden City Fire Department, celebrating 20 years of service.
Check. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Congrats. Oh, yeah. Me. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
We're getting the commissioners. Sophia,
Oh, they're all coming down.
20 years of service?
Okay. Big smiles on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Tammy says.
Tammy Sauceda. Tammy is celebrating 20 years of service with Garden City Police Department in the city of Garden City. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, picture on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
We have one employee that's celebrating a milestone that's not here today. Ed Borgman is our wastewater superintendent. He's celebrating 20 years of service also. So let's go ahead and give Ed a hand. All right, thank you.
They take a photo across the hall, just the staff.
All right.
Oh, yeah, that's you.
That's what somebody else can do.
Would one of you like to do the next one, maybe tonight? Sorry, we didn't plan that photo.
Item B, yeah.
Okay.
The City of Garden City requests the governing body consider and approve allowing the mayor to proclaim December 6, 2022 as Ernesto de la Rosa Day in recognition of Ernesto's contributions to all of Southwest Kansas during his employment with the City of Dodge City, Kansas.
I move that we approve the proclamation as presented.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes, and I believe this was presented yesterday at the City of Dodge City meeting. Thank you.
Item C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a request from Brenda Unruh, Turning Point Church of the Nazarene, to hand out hot chocolate and candy canes on the corner of Mary Street and Fleming Street on December 8th, 2022, from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m.
And note that Commissioner Unruh stepped down for this item.
I move to approve the request as presented.
Okay. I just had a, oh,
I'll second.
okay. Is this going to create any traffic issues? I'm just wondering. I mean, when I looked at this, being at the corner of Mary and Fleming, I didn't know if this would create any issues with traffic or not.
I don't believe so, but
He's back.
Tough question. Chief, on this one, I
C.
was just, item C on the handing out of hot chocolate and candy canes on the corner of Mary Street and Fleming, is that going to create any traffic issues for us, or? Nothing we can't handle, sir. Okay,
All right.
that's all I needed.
Yes, sir.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you. We'll wait a second for Commissioner Unruh to get back.
If you can find him.
He's hiding.
Okay.
Need a dark room, huh, so we turn the lights on and shut off.
From in here.
Mr. Pruitt, so.
Okay.
Ready for item 7A?
Yes.
Congratulations to Assistant City Manager Danielle Burke on the occasion of her selection as a delegate to Local Government 2030. Item B and C are monthly reports from departments. Do you have any questions over those?
Just another good record on the sales tax report.
Item D is a letter from Cox Communications regarding lineup changes that they provide to us because of their franchise agreement with the city. You'll see meetings of note. Some of those have passed already. And we'll be kind of winding down the Christmas season and some of your obligations. If any of those need RSVPs, I think we've taken care of the Christmas dinner at this point in time. Yeah, we should be all set on the rest of those. There is the Southwest Kansas Coalition annual meeting, just for everybody's benefit. That's we do put that on there to provide public notice, not just our governing body, but the governing body of Dodge City and governing bodies of Liberal can potentially have majorities of a quorum present at that meeting. There's no action taken in that meeting, but what the group does is come up with a consensus platform by the coalition cities, and then we bring that back to a subsequent meeting, provided it passes with a majority vote in all three cities. That becomes a platform of the coalition, and we can lobby, any of the staff or elected officials can lobby on behalf of the coalition in Topeka or in Washington, D.C. I think we're ready for item 9A. That's the appropriation ordinance. If approved, it would be ordinance number 2568-2022A.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 2568-2022A.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
A is a scheduled public hearing, so it's all right. We can move to 10B.
Okay.
The governing body is asked to consider, well, I'm sorry.
Well,
Nothing. Commissioner Ortiz is stepping down for this one.
Okay. Now, item 10B, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an ordinance authorizing the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for Providence Ethical Investments LLC. And if approved, it would be ordinance number 2944-2022. Danielle.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Before you this afternoon, you all are asked to consider and approve an ordinance authorizing the issuance of those industrial revenue bonds related to this project, which has been before you a number of times previously. So Providence Ethical Investments LLC is constructing a medical office building and has submitted a request for consideration for the use of industrial revenue bonds. That includes both a sales tax exemption component as well as consideration for a partial ad valorem property tax. That is in accordance with the city and county tax abatement policy. At your February 1st meeting of this year, the commission authorized a resolution of intent to issue taxable industrial revenue bonds in an approximate principal amount of $4.5 million for the purposes of purchasing, constructing, furnishing, and equipping this project. At your last meeting on November 15th, the commission held a public hearing and authorized a resolution approving the property tax exemption for this project. The cost-benefit analysis done as it related to this project does show that it qualifies for a 20% tax abatement in a manner which complies with Kansas state statute, which is actually 100% abatement with supplemental payments in lieu of taxes by the company to reflect the actual amount that is being abated and has been approved. So the action before you this afternoon is the final action required from you all to authorize the issuance of taxable revenue bonds. The city's bond counsel, Mary Carson, has been working with Providence Ethical Investments LLC on this matter and has prepared the ordinance for your consideration here this afternoon. The ordinance has also been reviewed and approved by the developers. So you have three alternatives before you. One is to approve the ordinance as presented, another is to not approve the ordinance as presented, or you all could provide staff with additional direction. Staff recommends alternative 1 and to approve the ordinance as presented. There is no fiscal impact to the city related to this item. The city does not have a responsibility for repayment of those IRBs with this tool. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
I move that we approve the ordinance as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2944-2022. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say I really appreciate some of these tools that organizations and businesses have at their disposal to really make these kind of things affordable and doable in our community. And I appreciate the expertise throughout not only our organization, but also other organizations such as Finney County Economic Development who are helping really establish some of these things. So thank you.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you. We'll wait for a second for Commissioner Ortiz to get back.
Those aren't his.
We'll give you one of those things they give you when you go out to eat and it flashes.
Yeah.
Yeah, little buzzer.
That's a little, when you said like the dark, I thought that was.
Okay, item 10C, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an ordinance combining the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Public Grounds and Tree Board into one Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. If approved, the ordinance would be 2945-2022. Aaron?
Afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. The ordinance before you would combine the Public Tree and Grounds Board with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, effectively merging them into one board. The desire behind this is currently it requires 2 meetings to accomplish Parks and Rec work through advisory boards. One being kind of the horticulture side, how native species play in parks, how the parks are laid out, and obviously trees and Arbor Day and Tree City USA. The other side being how people react in those spaces, facilities, everything from Garden Rapids to even Southeast Parks to design, where there are these multiple elements going on both sides. We think that can be more effectively and efficiently covered in one meeting, examining both sides at the same time. We are recommending that that board be a size of 7. So we would move from the 2 5-member boards into one board of 7. As you can see, we've got some board members terming out that would help with this. We'd actually need to appoint a board member that we would first examine with the expiring members to see if they would like to be appointed again, and to fill that vacated spot that, if approved, we would bring to you at a later board meeting. The alternatives before you, you can approve the ordinance as presented, combining the Public Grounds and Tree Board with a Parks and Rec Advisory Board into a single Parks and Rec Advisory Board, or you can deny the ordinance. Our recommendation is that you do combine the boards, and there's no fiscal impact to this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about it.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2945-2022.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
I know, Aaron, you're disappointed not having another meeting on the
There's a scheduled time for item 12A as well. So 12B would be the next item in order. The governing body is asked to consider and approve a request by 4A's Property, Inc. to extend the timeline to develop property located at 401 East Kansas Avenue. Danielle.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. In December of 2020, 4A Property, Inc., the buyer, entered into an agreement with the City of Garden City to purchase and develop property located at 401 East Kansas Avenue. In Section 11 of that agreement, it outlines that within 1 year of closing, the buyer was to develop and construct one or more permanent structures on that property. There were a number of issues that were discovered throughout that initial year, which led to the buyer requesting an extension. That initial extension was requested and granted administratively as outlined in the agreement through February of 2023. The buyer came before staff and has requested an additional year-long extension, as he does not believe that he will be able to comply with that by February of 2023. So before you is an item to extend that through February 5th of 2024. And I do believe Mr. Alvarado with 4A's Property, Inc. is here. If you all do want to hear from him or ask him any questions, I think he can give a little bit more detail as to some of the things that he's experienced over the last couple of years that has led to the extension request. There are two alternatives in front of you. One is to authorize the city manager to sign that extension letter. The other is to not authorize the manager to sign that letter and provide additional direction to staff. Staff has no recommendation as it relates to this item, and there's no fiscal impact noted related to this either. So I would be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I can invite the buyer to come up and say a few words. Would you mind?
How you doing?
Good.
I'm Enrique Alvarado, owner of 4A's Properties Incorporated. She said, in 2020, we win the bid to purchase this property and develop it. As the first year, we come up with a couple of issues that the size of the property was not going to fit anywhere in there. It will not be a profitable property to develop due to the lack of parking spaces. So we decided to ask the city to vacate that alley. And along that process, we ran into little issues as some of the surveyors were all backed up, and it just took longer than what we anticipated. Once we vacated the lot, vacated that part of the alley, it was divided in between the two neighbors, which is us and the other neighbor. So along with that process, we had to buy the other half from the neighbor, and that took a little bit longer than what we anticipated. So therefore, that whole year, the first year just went through doing all that process. Then after that, we had to go and it's been hard to find surveyors, architects, and everybody that will meet the time frame. I did talk to 3 different architects in town, and I was a little pushy on that aspect, like saying, we got to have it done. And no one wanted to take it because of the time frame. Finally, we got in contract with Blaine Davis, the architect firm here in Garden City. And he was able to take that job on the architect. Through planning and development, we finally got the site plan approved So we got the major thing already kind of figured out. But Winter, Dunlop Construction, which is my general contractor, they said they're super busy and they keep pulling our job behind and behind. So yeah, definitely we're in the best interest to develop this property, and I believe we've done most of the homework already. So the main thing is just getting it done now.
No, I appreciate you letting us know, because I just didn't know if there was any plans still, or if the property was just undevelopable, or, so I really appreciate you letting us know where it was at, and that you do have plans to move on, because I know it's a really nice property along Kansas Avenue, which is really one of our busiest streets, so I'm glad you have a plan and going forward, so.
Yeah, and we do, and it's in our best interest to get it done as soon as possible, so.
I move to authorize the city manager to sign the extension letter.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion, a second. Any discussion?
Do you have an estimated timeline of when you think the construction might start on it after winter?
Robert Dunlop didn't come by, but he said that we should be able to get it done before July of next year.
Okay.
Should be ready to go.
Yeah, and I think as long as we get, there is some hurdles with surveyors and
Yep.
things like you're talking about, but as long
Yeah,
as
it
we
was
get
good.
this, as long as we get this done
Right.
within this year, I'm
Yep.
comfortable. I don't know if we're in the same place next year, the decision would be the same, but I think we can get it done. And like Commissioner Undery said, that's a very valuable piece of land and high visibility, so it'd be good to get it developed and get things going on there. So,
We will. Thank you.
all right. So I guess we will, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado.
Item C, 10C, I think we have time for that item,
Yeah.
Mayor, if that's
Yeah.
okay. The governing body is asked to consider and approve a notice of acceptance for the infrastructure for Sunflower Crossing addition. Alicia?
Mayor and Commissioners, Sunflower Crossing Addition completed their construction of their infrastructure on November 3rd, 2022. Their infrastructure was inspected by the City of Garden City to ensure the work was done and in accordance with the requirements of the city and the development agreement. Section 70-2, subsection 7.130I, maintenance of improvements require the subdivider developer to maintain all required public improvement in the subdivision until the improvements are accepted by the governing body. The subdivider/developer is required to maintain the infrastructure for 1 year before the City of Garden City takes over the maintenance of the infrastructure. The subdivider developer has submitted the signed certificate of substantial complete form to the city upon completing the infrastructure. The notice of acceptance is the city acknowledging the completion of the infrastructure and will start the 1-year maintenance requirement. Your alternatives are the governing body may approve the notice of acceptance, or 2, the governing body may not approve the notice of acceptance. Staff would recommend alternative 1, and at this time, there is no fiscal obligation to the city. Questions?
I move to approve the notice of acceptance.
A second.
Right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, the 1:30 public hearing is going to have somebody call in, so I think by the time I figure the phone out, it should be about 1:30. So
Okay.
do you want to-
Open the meeting. All right, so 1:30 public hearing for governing body to consider and approve the ordinance to establish Woodmont Company's redevelopment district is open. And we'll get some people called in. What's this ordinance number?
If approved, 2946.
Okay.
Grant, this is Matt Allen with the City of Garden City. We're in a public meeting right now. The mayor just opened our agenda item 10A, which is the public hearing for the commission to consider, hear comment on the ordinance to establish the Woodmont Company redevelopment district. So can you hear me okay?
I can.
All right.
I can. Thank you again for the time and consideration.
You bet. We'll start with our staff report, and then you may be able to hear that. It may be slightly faint, but I'll prompt you when you have an opportunity to speak to the project. Does that sound good?
Okay, sounds great.
All right. Danielle, it's yours.
Fantastic. Good afternoon again, Mayor and Commissioners. The item before you is related to the Woodmont company doing business as Garden City Plaza redevelopment district. Again, this has been before you in a number of fashions. This is kind of the next step of that project. So back in September of this year, the commission authorized a memorandum of understanding with the Woodmont company that outlined the anticipated project costs along with the anticipated public contributions. And this is kind of the next phase of that. So November 1st of this year, the commission authorized public hearing for the Woodmont development project, generally located at 2310 East Kansas, for December 6th at 1:30. So that's what we're doing here this afternoon. And at this time, the governing body is asked to consider and approve the ordinance establishing the redevelopment of property located at 2310 East Kansas Avenue as blighted. This allows the use of tax increment financing, or TIF, to assist in financing of that redevelopment. The blight study is attached, and staff believes that that does meet the statutory requirement to provide adequate information determining the area to be blighted. This is the second step of a multi-step process to provide TIF financing for redevelopment of this area. Following the adoption of the ordinance, the developer will provide a TIF redevelopment plan, which would go before the Planning Commission to find that it is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and then come back before you all as the governing body for final approval through a public hearing process. So there's still a couple additional steps to come related to this. The city's bond counsel, Mary Carson, has assisted with the preparation of the attached ordinance and has been working with the developers and their counsel, so they have reviewed it and approved it as well. There are two alternatives before you this afternoon. One is to approve the ordinance establishing the Woodmont Company redevelopment district. The other is to not approve that ordinance and provide staff with additional direction. Staff is recommending alternative one, which is the approval of the ordinance as proposed. There is no fiscal impact related to this item. The developer will be using private financing and reimburse themselves over time with pay-as-you-go financing using those that TIF redevelopment plan. So we do have Grant Gary with the Woodmont Company on the line from kind of the developer's perspective. If you have any questions that staff can answer, I would be happy to do that. Otherwise, I'm sure he would be happy to answer questions as well, or make a few comments related to the project.
Okay, Grant, I think you're up. The staff report's been presented. Do you want to speak to the project?
Sure. No, absolutely. Again, this is Grant Gary with the Woodmont Company. And again, appreciate everyone's time and consideration this afternoon, as well as a thank you to Matt and Shannon and Lana and the entire city staff there and team. They've been great to work with. And, this is a project we've been working on for a long time, relatively speaking, and, still have a long way to go, but we're very excited and, as I say, appreciative of the support and consideration and really partnership as we look at it here to allow this project to move forward. We've historically been retail developers. We've developed over 14 million square feet over the 43 years of the company, and we continue to lean in. We continue to be bullish and believe in retail and the need for retail, not only in many parts of the country, but certainly there in Garden City. So, we have continued working on the project, developing the plans and specifications. I think provided there's consideration, continued path forward, it's our intent to have this first phase of the project completed and open prior to the end of 2023. So again, as I say, we appreciate the time and consideration and available for any questions.
Any questions for Grant?
Thanks for making the investment, so it's, yeah.
Yep.
I move to approve.
Well, let me
Oh, I'm
get
sorry.
public
I can't do it well.
comment
You're right.
and close out the meeting.
I'm having a little trouble hearing. I got a little bit of that, so just want to make sure
They thanked you for your comments. They're now in a point in the public hearing where they're looking for anybody else that may have showed up for the public hearing. I'll cue you if there's a question your way.
Right?
Okay.
Anybody from the public want to comment on this? If not, I believe I can close the public part of this. All right. Now we can go to discussion and
I'm getting excited now. I move to approve ordinance number 2946-2022.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes. Thank you,
Grant, the item passed. Thank you for allowing us to call you.
Well, no, thank you. That's great news and a great step forward. We're very excited and look forward to seeing everyone soon and keeping the project moving forward.
Likewise. Thank you, Grant. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye now.
Get back to D. 12D,
Okay,
if we have time to do that
Yeah,
in 10 minutes.
I believe so. No, we don't. We probably don't have time to do E either. Shall we move to F?
Sure.
Pardon me. Item 12F. The governing body is asked to consider and approve the 2023 state and federal legislative agendas. Each year, the commission considers legislative agendas that serve as the platform for intergovernmental relations and advocacy in Topeka and Washington. The formally approved City of Garden City 2023 state and federal legislative agendas in conjunction with legislative agendas adopted by member agencies to which the City of Garden City belongs. Those would be like the League of Kansas Municipalities or Kansas Municipal Utilities, those types of groups. Enables individual city representatives to speak on behalf of the City of Garden City in a manner consistent with the content of the legislative agendas. The elements of the 2023 state and federal agendas are very similar to the ones approved last year. Suggested changes from the City Commission pre-meeting workshop earlier in the year were incorporated. Those included a reformatting of the state policy, more specific language in both policies related to advocating for divided four-lane highway design along US 83 and US 5400, and including the topic of water in the federal legislative agenda. I might also add that there was a mental health section added to the state agenda. Upon adoption, copies of the approved 2023 state and federal legislative agendas will be sent to respective members of the city's delegations as well as the city's governmental relations contractors. If the City Commission would choose not to adopt the city legislative agenda, individual city representatives could still advocate or give testimony at the state or federal level, but it would be limited to those topics and corresponding position statements included in the legislative agendas of member entities like the League or the KMU or also the Southwest Kansas Coalition, or on individual topics and position statements specifically presented and approved at City Commission meetings during the course of the year. So the alternatives available to you are to approve the 2023 legislative agendas as presented. You may approve modified versions of those with changes you recommend here at today's meeting, or do not approve the legislative agendas and give staff further direction. We recommend you adopt the 2023 state and federal legislative agendas.
I move that we approve the 2023 state and federal legislative agendas.
Tim?
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
No, I really appreciate the changes. I mean, the documents are very easy, very readable, and just really clear cut. So excellent job by the staff. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes.
Item G, Community Health Advisory Board has presented a recommendation for the governing body to consider. And I'll just let Danielle take it from there.
Good afternoon, once again, Mayor and Commissioners. The Community Health Advisory Board has recommended to send to you all consideration for a co-responder program. So at their November 8th meeting of this year, Community Health Advisory Board made a recommendation to you all related to a co-responder program to find a way to move that program, to establish that program and ultimately fund it. Over the last several months, that board has been listening to and hearing from a variety of community agencies that impact or have some role in mental health and the processes related to that throughout the city to really gain a better understanding of the needs within the community. After hearing from all of those agencies, the board made a recommendation to you all to consider a co-responder program within the Garden City Police Department. So generally speaking, a co-responder program is a specialty trained team that consists of both law enforcement personnel along with trained mental health care personnel that can respond to mental health calls for service together. This program would require the support of a number of agencies and partners throughout the entire community, but the board is requesting that you all direct staff to start those discussions and ultimately bring back a proposal for consideration at a future date. So they were really interested in kind of continuing that conversation forward, giving a recommendation to you all to direct staff to really continue those conversations and figure out what that would look like here. There are a lot of examples of what that looks like across the country, but figuring out what will work here. So that was really their conversation and request of you all. So 3 alternatives related to this. One would be to approve the board's recommendation and direct staff to work with community partners to develop a proposal. To establish a co-responder unit, another alternative would to not approve that recommendation or provide staff with additional direction. So staff's recommendation is in alignment with the Community Health Advisory Board, which is alternative 1, to review and see what that would look like here. As it relates, this is just a proposal to bring back to you all, so there's no financial impact at this point, although if we were to fund a program like that, there obviously would be down the road. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have related to this.
So when you say it's housed under the police department, so is the police department the organization that would actually call this responder department in, or this responder co-responder committee into place, or the program into place? Is that who is going to house, that's where it's going to be housed at?
Yes, that would be the department that it would be housed within, and so you would have and again, they can look a lot of different ways, so it depends on kind of what that proposal looks like, but typically what you see is a law enforcement officer going on a call with a trained mental health care professional when a call has been identified to have a mental health component to it. So they may not be the first officer on the scene, but would be called in if there was a call that had a mental health care component to it, so that you could kind of have that trained specialty person also responding to those calls.
So the trained, I'm just a little confused, but the trained mental health care professional is not an officer, or is it an officer?
Correct. It
Okay.
typically is not an officer. So
Okay.
typically it's a position that you would contract out with some other entity, and then they would come and respond to those calls. But typically it is a contracted out position, not a law enforcement officer.
So they would
be
need to be
a trained
licensed?
mental health care.
So licensed and then, right.
Yep.
Will they
Yeah,
go
so
through some
social
type
work or
of
something
training,
like that.
like for, because I know, and some of these situations are pretty volatile, I know, and so will they go through training for the protection and all those things? Because I know officers, there's a lot of, and they do a lot of training and a lot of self-care, making sure that when they walk into situations that no one is injured, especially them and the people that they work with, so.
Yes, so that contract position would not become a law enforcement officer, but that is part of the reason why they would be with a law enforcement officer. And typically, like I said, they're usually not the first ones on the scene. They're typically called in once the scene has been secured and there's been a need identified for that type of work and that type of response.
I'm glad to see that we're meeting that need, so somehow with this program, so appreciate the efforts to put this together.
In my mind, that when we're talking about a need, it's both maybe the subjects of the incident, but also maybe ancillary
Right.
people involved, children or
Yep.
whatever that might need
Yeah,
that
the
mental
follow-up.
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
Any
Is it-
discussion, or you?
Just one other question.
Okay.
Is this something that I know it's for the Garden City Police Department, but have they visited with the Finney County Sheriff's Department on this as well? Maybe partnering?
I think as we go into, there's a lot of staff work that is going to be required to bring a proposal before you all. So I absolutely think they will be one of those key critical partners as we talk about what this program looks like going forward. But what that looks like today, I don't know. But
Just asking, sure.
the short answer is yes, they will absolutely be part of those conversations.
Any other questions?
I'll make the motion to approve the Community Health Advisory Board's recommendations and direct staff to work with community partners to develop a proposal to establish a co-responder unit.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? That passes. And we're about 1:45.
Okay, we'll move back up to 12A. This is a 1:45 public hearing. Let me get to the right item on the screen for everybody else. All right. Item 12A, a 1:45 public hearing on the matter of the governing body hearing questions, concerns, and comments from the public concerning the 2022 budget amendments that are necessary to reflect actual 2022 expenditures. Following the hearing, the governing body is asked to approve the certificate of amended budget. And I'll invite Jared Coleman, Finance Director, up to present this item.
We'll open up the hearing.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Similar to how we approve our budget each year, we amend our budget for anything in 2022 proposed budget that we submitted to the state last year that we're going to exceed our budget authority. Statute requires that we amend it prior to spending that money. And so we've identified a few funds. We discussed them at the meeting when we listed this in the paper. But these funds have been identified as either having excess revenue coming in or having a higher cash balance than we originally anticipated. So we can't spend what we don't have. All these funds have justifications to show why we'd spend the money. But your options today are to amend the budgets as shown for 2022 amended budget certificate, or to not amend the budgets. However, doing so would potentially put us in a situation where we would spend above what our authorized limit is. To note, just as a kind of sidebar to this point, recently we've proposed the capital improvement plan that the city will be adopting, where we create a separate fund. We'll be doing, typically these budget amendments occur at the end of the year as we kind of know where our expenditures are, but we will be doing a budget amendment in early 2023 to adopt creating that fund and authorizing those expenditures as we go. So you'll see kind of an out of the norm, another amendment coming forward here in the beginning of 2023. So just wanted to kind of throw that on the radar if that's going to be abnormal from what our usual practice is. But today, pretty status quo, amending the budgets that we anticipate will be exceeding our authority. I'll step aside in case there's any public comment.
All right. Do you have anybody from the public like to comment on this? If not, I'll close the hearing. All right. Any discussion?
I make a motion, we approve the budget as shown on the 2022 amended budget certificate.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. I believe we're ready for the item D, item 12D. The governing body is asked to consider and approve adopting the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as presented by Confluence. I'll invite Aaron Stewart up.
Afternoon again. The item before you is May 18th at the 2021 Commission meeting, we selected Confluence to complete the master plan. That's been about a year and a half in the making. They were tasked with identifying, doing a needs assessment, visioning, identifying, evaluating community needs, priorities, opportunities, and a phased implementation and financial plan. They have done that. They have completed that task, and they're ready to present the summary findings to you today. We will be asking, once that's complete, if you'll consider and adopt the master plan. And when they're done, I'll tie it up right at the end and bring that back before you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hank Moyers with Confluence, Leon Younger with Pros.
I don't believe I'll scroll the PDF. All right.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Hank Myers with Confluence, Associate Principal.
We've been in the process, as Aaron mentioned, for the last year and a half working on this, and feel like we've finally gotten to a point after working with the comp plan as well that we have two plans here that kind of see eye to eye and are in line with each other as part of this process. Today we want to go through the public survey results. Leon's going to touch on the demographic and trends analysis, the program assessment, also talk about the organizational assessment and the financial assessment, and then I will be running through the facilities recommendations, the level of service matrix and map, the approach that we plan on taking for the trails in the city, as well as some site-specific master plan updates as part of this process. So with that, I'll hand this off to Leon.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So just on the survey results, it was a statistically valid survey, which means it matches the demographics of your community plus or minus 5%. So that it really demonstrates the validity of it, and it really focused on users and non-users of the system. We also did an online survey that really pretty much mirrors what your constituents really are, your users are saying. So the most visited parks were Stevens Park, Bennett Park, Dean Wiley Park, and Harold Long Park, and 94 to 95% rated it as excellent or good. Over 27% of the respondents participated in recreation programs offerings in the last 12 months, which was pretty good with COVID, because a lot of people really got out of it and just stayed home and didn't really participate as much in programming. The households were asked how they would allocate funds if they had $100. So they would break it up in $32.71 to acquire more land for parks and trails and for recreation facility development, $24 to make improvements to regional park amenities, $21 for improvements to existing outdoor sports complexes, and $21 to improvements to indoor recreation facilities, which really is a nice balance between indoor and outdoor, which we really think demonstrates the year-round aspect and the value of parks and recreation in the city. Households were asked, $100 for services. What is it? Okay, facility needs. The areas and priorities were trails, outdoor amphitheater, performance space. Even though you have Stevens Park, I think people are still wanting more activity around performances and special events. Benches, playgrounds, shelters, dog parks, outdoor fitness areas, more outdoor patio space, adventure areas for outdoor recreation. In the survey, they also, the program areas that were important, they looked at outdoor concerts and performing arts space and programs, weekly food trucks, historic walks, culture events, activities for seniors, holiday celebration events, organized trips for seniors, adult health and fitness programs, family activity nights. So, you know, it's really broad in terms of the type of activities people are looking for that were priorities for them. So in the demographic analysis, we pretty much did an assessment that follows the comp plan that you all were involved with. And really the population indicates a need for additional youth and family-oriented programming. This focuses primarily on, because you have a lot of youth in this community, people are really looking for more opportunities for their kids, as well as adults. 23% of the residents are over 55, which would indicate that they would like to have more services as well targeted to that group. The city's below average income characteristics suggest a potential limited disposable income, so a lot of programs need to be mindful of pricing, and the city should ensure its diversity population is reflected in its offerings so that you're able to serve all of the users of the city in this kind of Parks for All program. In terms of program assessment, the program descriptions and goals do a great job of effectively communicating to the public. You have some really good programs in your activity guide. Age-segment distribution is aligned well with your demographics of your community. Program life cycles are really pretty good. Approximately 19% of the system's current programs are categorized in introduction stage, while 8% are fall in decline. There's 5 segments of a program, and so you're right in the middle, which indicates that staff really understands who their markets and when to get out of the market in programming. The volunteer program allows residents and organizations to get involved in, which really, volunteerism is an advocacy program. It really builds people's loyalty to the system, and it helps them to really support youth and adults and events, because it's just a core business into itself. From a marketing and promotion standpoint, the staff use a variety of marketing methods, including websites, brochures, direct mail, email blasts, radio advertisement, all the social media mixes that are out there. But again, in any type of a situation, people want more, and everybody kind of picks their place where they go. And so consequently, I think we made some recommendations on that as well. In terms of operation and financial analysis, we looked at the departments, the way the park system is set up, and administration, recreation, golf, park and open space, and zoo and culture. And then functionally, what are the programs that are aligned to each area? And then what's the operating budget in each one of those categories, so that we're able to make sure that there's no overlap in services between departments, and that there's accountability for real dedicated strategy for implementing the recommendations in each of those categories. This is the organizational structure, the way it is when we were putting it together. It might be a few changes since then, but at this point, this is the way the organization sets up, which I think really demonstrates a really complex but really thorough way the system will operate in the future. In terms of action plan recommendations, really start with programming. Our vision there is provide services that the community feels are unmet. So we want to look at and make recommendations on more cultural events, develop more senior programs for 60 to 90-year-olds, build more support groups that are interested in working with the park system on hosting events, work with the community college on basically setting up parks on recreation curriculum, and then establish cost of service across the board, just so that the city knows exactly how much they're subsidizing the program, both direct and indirect, and if it's meeting the cost recovery goals of their budget. And then really developing a marketing strategy to inform citizens of the services of the department. Also then in operations and staffing, again, to grow the staff capabilities through proper training, establish an in-house training program for staff, establish what the training needs are for the department as applies to program development and management, recruit staff to work in the system, mainly through the community college, setting up a training program within the college, update job descriptions to reflect new expectations to meet the desired results, and then work with the HR department of the city to help clearly understand what the employment requirements are needed. And, it's really important to build your base of employees, and you really start at the high school level through the community college, and they'll come back and people will work. It's hard, and people don't realize how difficult the park systems have been across the country trying to get people to work. And a lot of cities that we work with, we're only open, have their pools open 3 days or 4 days a week, and you guys did a great job being able to open all your facilities. And then really to grow the financing recommendations to properly create the right level of funding, and the parks budget is properly funded to meet the needs and expectations of the community. And what's really, I think, was good through this process is people have high expectations of the park system, and it's a real quality of life issue for living here, and how important it is that it adds value to people and their entire family, whether they have older adults or kids. And to determine that, we want to ensure that the maintenance of the parks, the zoo, golf, forestry are all well taken care of, and really demonstrates that they're all working together, not in competition with each other. That you measure the outcomes of this plan, and part of the recommendations in here is for Aaron and his group to come in on a yearly basis and demonstrate to you what's been achieved in the plan and what's required. Incorporate earned income opportunities to really help supplement tax and user fees. And then we really make a recommendation that all of your revenue producing facilities have what I call a mini business plan of really who their market is, how well they're servicing the market, and really the performer that's associated with managing those sites, so everybody understands how they work together. And it really is a good process for the department to adopt. determine expectations as it applies to maintenance. And I'm going to turn this over now to Confluence, to Hank.
Thank you, Leon. So one of the final category that we really looked at as far as recommendations was facilities recommendations. And so as we get looking into this, we want to look at opportunities to update the existing sports complexes and prioritize those into Tier 1 versus Tier 2 fields. What that means is Tier 1 would be top-level tournament fields, synthetic surfacing, full netting, all of that. Tier 2 would be the next step down. Still nice new bleachers, nice new backstops and netting, but maybe not synthetic turf fields. So it's a matter of determining what the priority is and how many tournaments a year you really want to host. And also, when we talk about Tier 1 and Tier 2, that also has environmental implications on how much water you're using to irrigate the natural turf fields. So those are some of the conditions that we wanted to look at there. We also recommended incorporating restrooms, drinking fountains, park bench and shelters, and then trail loops where feasible within the park's facilities. So these would be updates to your existing park facilities that we would be looking at for recommendation. And also to evaluate the trends in parks and recreation. Trends are ever changing within parks and recreation. We're seeing all sorts of new amenities and activities that are occurring within the parks. Just to go back and revisit those on a year-by-year basis and see if there's opportunities to incorporate some of those elements into your existing park facilities. We know you're getting the new skate park, but there might be opportunities for things like a pump track, ropes or zip line courses, climbing wall, or even some mini golf in your parks facilities. We've also created a Trails Master Plan that's in line with what was presented within the comp plan and feel like it should be implemented as part of this process over time. And then to establish signage and site furnishing standards and guidelines for the Parks and Recreation Department to follow. Some of the other opportunities that we looked at were to establish guidelines for improvements and replacements on playgrounds. Typically, on those, you see about a 15 to 25-year life cycle on playgrounds. Many of your existing facilities are already at that level or way beyond, so it's time for replacement on a lot of those facilities, which we've identified within the master plan. And we would recommend that as you incorporate these, looking at various playground styles, not being consistent across the board, having a little bit of variation within those, and to make 50% of those universally accessible as a minimum standard within your community. We also recommended incorporation of public and environmental art, learning stations, and nature play, looking at incorporation of additional programming into underutilized parks to really energize those parks, bring people back in, and give people some opportunities to participate in various elements, different elements in each of your various parks facilities. Also, we know that there's been a study for a community center to meet the needs of the indoor recreation community, look at how to incorporate that and establish that, and also to rebuild the Buffalo Dunes Clubhouse to meet the level of quality that you see on the course for the hosting facility. And then as part of this, we also looked at the strategic plan for the zoo, and we would continue to make updates to the Lee Richardson Zoo to follow that strategic master plan. This is a graphic that we've shown previously that just shows the current level of service matrix for your overall facilities. There were some changes that were requested at the time to look at other facilities that also serve the community within there, including school sites and other county facilities. So we've incorporated those as part of that. As a total for the city, there's 639 acres of total parks existing within your facilities today. If you incorporate the schools in the Finney County facilities, you have over 877 acres of parks per 1,000 residents, which if you look at a recommended level of service of 17 acres per 1,000, you currently meet that standard. However, at the various levels of parks, there's still a need for some acreage of land, particularly in the neighborhood and community park level facilities. And that's based on your current population of 31,275. As you look at it, I've gone through that from a future level of service standard. And when you look at a 2035 population estimate based on what is in the comp plan, those total inventory of acres drops fairly significantly to the point where we're at 11.87 acres per 1,000 residents, which is quite a bit below where we were before on our current standards, which states that you need approximately another 250 acres of parks facilities within your parks holdings, which would equate to about 160 acres of neighborhood parks and 90 acres of community parks within that development. And if you look at that on a basis of a neighborhood park being 1 to 10 acres, that's approximately anywhere from, 16 to, 20 parks associated with a neighborhood level park. And then from a community level park, that would equate to probably 1 additional community level park that could be added to your system as part of this process. We also understood that there were some boundary changes and some additional facilities that we needed to identify as part of the level of service map. You can see here on this level of service map, the entire city is served by at least 1 park. You've got regional parks, and 95% of it is probably serviced by a community level park. What we do like to see, though, however, is that for pocket and neighborhood parks, that you've got like a half-mile service radius. And so there are some areas that might be slightly underserved as part of that, and we've identified some opportunities to incorporate some of those as part of that based on the recommendations in the comp plan. This is a reflection of what was in the comp plan as far as the trails approach and what we're recommending as far as service. When you look at this, the red is what's existing in your community today. Blue is on-street or shared use trail. Green would be greenway trails, and then the light blue would be future recommended trails as part of the system. And then to kind of wrap this up, we also did look at 3 of your existing parks facilities within the community. The first one we looked at was Dean Wiley. Primarily what we wanted to do as part of this is make some improvements to your existing bowl facilities, creating a more usable destination with some shaded bench seating, some additional new lighting, nicer concessions, better netting, and just better surfacing out there to make those fields more usable, and also to pave the parking lot in the northwest corner of the site. Also, as part of this, we looked at the incorporation of an updated playground and splash pad that would complement the existing shelter out there, and then also a pull-off on the east side that would allow for you to have food truck events out there as well. That does not eliminate the parking along that edge, but you could actually incorporate some bollards along those to stop the drop-off area for the food truck events as well. We also looked at the incorporation of some additional pickleball courts adjacent to the basketball courts, and then along the western side, incorporation of a small and large dog park that could be serviced from the parking lot on the northwest corner. For Finn-Up Scout Park, we know that the existing park today is having the incorporation of the new skate park as part of that. We've also incorporated a full-size skate rink or inline skate rink as part of this on the northern side, and looked at parking along the alleyway on the west side. There are some existing basketball courts, and then the shelter and restrooms, we would look at renovation or replacement of those facilities as they're in need of some serious attention. We also looked at the incorporation of a shaded playground on the southern edge that could be incorporated as a fully accessible playground facility. And then finally, we looked at Finup Scout Park. Within this diagram, you can see the incorporation on the north side, kind of central to the parks facility being some additional botanic gardens incorporated as part of that. You can see Garden Rapids there, and then along the eastern edge of Garden Rapids, we looked at the incorporation of additional adult fitness and obstacle course elements, some pickleball courts. There was already a plan in place for some future parking lot expansion to the south for the baseball fields. The cornhole and horseshoe area, that we would take some of the horseshoe pits out and incorporate cornhole as part of that. And then we've kind of realigned the parking loop through the park to open up some of the areas that are currently blocked by parking to make it more pedestrian friendly. And as part of that, with the tree cover that's out there, we feel like there's a great opportunity to incorporate disc golf as part of this plan. It's been huge in many communities throughout the state and offers a lot of opportunities for tournaments to be brought in, as well as just another generator for weekend activities within the park itself. Some improvements to the existing ball fields that would be out there, the incorporation of a pump track, a destination playground facility, and then we've moved a dog park along the southern side of the parking loop drive on the south side that would incorporate areas for small and large dogs, and then a shared use maintenance facility that could be used adjacent to the dog park and the zoo. And the zoo and the Parks Department could both have sections of that maintenance facility as part of that, and leaving the existing dump grounds in place as they are today. So with that, we would open it up to any questions that anybody might have.
So you talked about, so Aaron's going to be reporting on how, so are there, I know that when we did the studies from the police department and the fire department, they had recommendations and then they were able to check them off. Is that going to be the same type of a checklist that you're proposing so that he can report on that, or how is that going to look?
So there's an implementation matrix that was shared as part of the document in your packet. As part of that, there's a series, and it's broken down just as we did with the financial, the operations and management, the facilities. And within each of those, there's a series of tasks and recommendations as part of those. And the matrix is further down in the document. I think it's section 4. But it identifies what those standards are and then what those measures are to meet those standards. And this is a living document. This is something that's going to have to be revisited on a year-by-year basis. And there's likely more in here than what you can really accomplish within that 10-year period of time. And it gives you a good foundation and jumping off point for the next round down the road. But this does start to identify what those performance measures, whose responsibility it is, what the timeline is, and then, it does give you a checklist and kind of a step-by-step of what we would expect. And it's really up to Aaron and his staff to really start to identify what the priorities are within each of those different facilities and what needs the most attention.
Was this looked at along with the zoo's master plan for their expansion as well?
Yes, it was. We were involved in that.
I enjoyed going through the document and seeing all the recommendations. I thought it was very thorough.
Yes.
All the way down to funding strategies, and because I know that's going to be play a big role in, what the Parks and Recs Department's able to accomplish. And so thank you for going through that. It really, it was a long document. It took me 2 days to read it, but I did appreciate all the background and seeing the matrix, but especially just seeing, how you came to your statistics and things like that. So thanks.
There's a lot of work that's in, like assessing the current parks. I mean,
Yes.
in the appendix,
Yeah.
there's a lot that are,
Yeah, you went through each individual park, and I thought that was really impressive. I mean, I learned a lot about the parks, going through that, just, beyond just seeing them. But, I thought it was very well done.
I think the things you're proposing are very doable in our community. I mean, obviously, we're not going to have a big scuba diving, indoor something, but I mean, so the things I think you chose were, they're really doable here, and I think they're also attract, people to do additional outdoor and indoor activities, so.
Thank you, and I think they're all reflective of what the community has told us they want, which I think is the key component here.
Yeah, they're the driver behind it.
Definitely.
any other comments? Looks like Aaron.
All right. Thank you. So, as I stated before, what we're asking now is that you consider and potentially adopt the master plan, and that will, as they kind of stated, that helps us as staff to do long-range planning, kind of resource allocation, programming, facilities, parks, program trends. But as they said, this is a living, breathing document. I was talking to Matt the other day, and the example I use is pickleball is the hot option right now. 5 years, that may not be the case. So we may not want to put pickleball courts in. So that's the reason we need to address this every year. So with that, you would have a couple alternatives here. You can approve you can adopt the Parks and Rec master plan, or you can deny it. We do recommend alternative one, adoption of the Parks and Rec master plan. At this time, there is no fiscal cost to that. Any items that, require spending limits above or that require governing body approval would be brought before you at that time. And I'll answer any questions if you have any for me.
Do we know win prize of the biggest, longest document in the, I remember a document that's like, maybe the master plan for the city, but I don't even think it was that long.
It's big.
This was very thorough, so.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you know when we would have a hard copy of all of this info in the book?
If adopted, my intent is, because the one that you have here had to be reduced 2 times to fit it in the packet. So I would like to get you a hard copy that has clear resolutions on it. So we'll get those printed and to you as soon as we can.
And the summary document, I think your summary was really, it really pulled out some key things, which, that would be really useful too, your PowerPoint or whatever it is. I really appreciate your summary, because when I saw how long this one, I didn't know how you'd make it. Going through everything, I was like, there's just no way. So the summary that you provided, to me, that was really useful, because it really highlighted the things that were important, so.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
I move that the governing body approve adopting the Park and Recreation Master Plan.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any final discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any all opposed? That passes. Thanks for your work, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Item 12E, the governing body is asked to consider and approve a 2023 calendar and hours of operation plan for Garden Rapids at the Big Pool. Aaron?
Afternoon again. At the October 18th pre-meeting, we went over the end-of-year report for Garden Rapids at the Big Pool for 2022. And at the conclusion of that, we had a worksheet that we were discussing, and I was asked to bring back kind of the operational hours for discussion in a meeting, and that's what's before you today. So the first topic is kind of the pool daily operational hours, and we've got a couple of examples for you. Kind of some of the background on there is the hour-by-hour admissions. That kind of 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock admissions, it accounts for about 4.45% of our total admissions for the year during that Monday through Friday period. During that time of day. When looking at the attendance from the Monday through Friday period, it tends to decline, hits its lowest gap kind of Wednesday, Thursday. Friday's actually our peak day, but because our Friday night events are counted in that admission. If you deduct that out, it actually looks like very similar to Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. So in this first one, we look at an option of closing at 7 p.m. We took a 3% and an 8% kind of bottom number, top number, reduced revenue generation from loss of admissions. Basing this on, we think people attend for about 3 hours on average. So that's where we're kind of, again, and these are estimates, but that's where we kind of came with that bottom estimate and top estimate. At a 3% reduction, we would be looking at a $4,973 reduction. 8% would be $13,262. Now, the other thing we anticipated, and I know we talked a little bit about this in the pre-meeting, is aquatics tend to trend down over the first 5 years before they level out in admissions. So we did want to make some account for that. So we used 8% for that reduction number for year 3, just to give you a better overall picture of what that may look like, bringing the totals to 18,235 on 3% and 26,524 reduction over the total admissions for 2022 at the 8% level. And again, we do believe, obviously, for closing down 2 hours, it's going to affect concession revenue as well. And we looked at 3% and 5% and added those into the total. Doing the breakdown off of 2018, our labor cost per hour for full operations, meaning all lifeguards in the stand, all slide attendants, concessions, admissions, etc. That's $418 an hour. So reducing it 1 hour, 5 days a week for 11 weeks, that's a labor expense reduction of $22,990. The overtime on that would have been, so our 2022 overtime hours was 895 hours. Which equated about $16,674. We would, if we adjusted by that simple 5-hour reduction a week, our adjusted wages off of that number would have been $13,472, or a savings of $3,201. So our net position gain or loss under the 3% model would be $4,216. We would have sustain a loss under the 8% model of $6,565. So option 2 under that task, closing at 6 p.m. So the first one was 7 p.m. We do anticipate, obviously, a higher reduction in with an additional hour. So we use 10 and 15%. $29,840 for the 10% reduction, $38,128 for the 15% reduction on admissions revenue. Again, 5% and 10% for concessions. So a reduction of revenue of $6,232 and then $12,464. Labor reduction, $45,980. So that's, again, 2 hours, 5 days a week, 11 weeks. And then the adjusted overtime would be $6,555, or an expense savings of $10,119. So net position gain or loss, $20,026 from the, I'm sorry, that's a typo, from the 10/15%, $5,505 from the 10% model. So part of this, what is only expressed kind of in the overtime numbers and the labor hours is the task. And I think what the overtime hours show is that how much our staff is actually working long hours. So kind of part of what needs to be kept in mind when looking at these options is the toll it takes on staff, and recognize that whether it's 7 or 6 p.m., I believe that will improve staff's morale, retainment, their ability to show up to work, their attitude when at work. So I think either option presents a better situation for them. Topic number 2. Well, let me ask any questions before we move on to topic number 2.
Well, because I know also, I was thinking about, the different times, and I know that even if you close at 6 o'clock, so that's when it closes, the staff are still there 20 to 30 minutes, making sure everything's cleaned up and put away.
Right.
So, I think, that's something I thought about too. You think about most people, go home for dinner. I'm not saying you don't want to feed your kids concession stand food for dinner, but you think about most people, especially families, they're going to go home for dinner. So I was thinking that really, you think about there is that savings, but also the staff, they're still getting almost a full 8-hour day because arriving early to be on time and then staying late to clean up everything. So when you said 7-hour shifts, it does still come close to an 8-hour shift,
Yeah.
or a 9-hour shift if you close at 7. So.
Yeah, so, and part of what's also going on at that time of night is between 6 and 8 p.m. is when we do swim lessons.
Yep.
So there are, now we've had to double up staff. This would allow us, we didn't take that into account because we anticipate that it's going to require the same amount of people to do it, so that's not going to bear any factor in this. But it does allow us to make sure that we can fill those swim lesson spots a little bit better because the pool's closed. And it still reduces overtime because we're having to guard and do swim lessons at the same time. Any other questions on that? All right. Topic 2, pool calendar year. So closing the pool to the start of ESD 457. The daily admissions before school started was 704 on average. Once school started, that dropped to 389. And I'm sure you guys are hyper aware that it's been very difficult to staff that. And in fact, we've only been open 2 full days in the 2 years that we've done it. One of those being Labor Day this year. And we incentivize that pretty heavily to make that happen. So it's just really difficult once we lose the college kids. There's just not that big a pool to draw from. So we did use this year's kind of hard numbers had we closed down to kind of show what that would look like. Again, we think we would lose about $10,000 in admissions and concessions, $5,500. Labor costs, $24,000. The chemical costs, $14,676. And I know we talked about the kind of the increased costs in chemicals this year. So an extra 3 weeks of treating the pool does add up significantly. So we're looking at a total potential savings of $24,277. Based on 2022 numbers, that would obviously probably adjust some for 23. Does anybody have questions about the calendar year? Okay. Events. Again, at the pre-meeting, one of the things we noticed this year is night events from a participation standpoint. Dramatically different attendance than anything else, 2 to 3 times as much. The other one we did talk about was kind of the niche program, which is the adult night. What we're suggesting for events is adding 1 adult night and then turning the rest of the night swims into night swims where everybody can attend. So that would be effectively adding 3 additional night swims for a total of 6. So we feel that the kids swim, the teen night can be captured in that night swim because it is open to all ages. And I think our previous attendance has shown that it doesn't detract from anybody from coming. In fact, it does allow more people, or it encourages more people to come. We do anticipate that we could increase based on our averages. If those hold true next year, it would be about a $7,500 increase in revenue with no additional increase in cost because we've already been staffing those. 12 and under swim, which is another topic that I know has come up in the chamber in front of you all before. We did have better attendance this year. We averaged 107 per event, so we did 3 of them. We are suggesting adding 2 more for this year for a total of 5. So we basically plan second and, well, first and third Tuesday, something like that, of the month. So there would be at least a couple of opportunities, and hopefully we can maintain that attendance. One of the comments that did come up is that it wasn't advertised well, so we do anticipate putting more effort behind that this year. So Any questions about events? Rentals. Rentals are available after we close, starting at 8:30 on Saturday nights, although that one is not generally booked very much. Sundays are much more attractive because they can start at 6:30 p.m. We did have 6 rentals last year, full pool rentals. We did talk about the cabanas catching on late in the year. I do anticipate seeing a better result from those this year. We don't necessarily have any suggested changes. We want to continue with what we've been doing and continue to work to grow, especially the cabana rentals that happen during operational hours. So looking at the scenarios, and we kind of put the 2 big ones together for you, which would be closing at Monday night, or closing at 7 Monday through Friday. We would close for the season prior to the start of USD 475. Friday night events would be amended to the 5 adult nights and 6 night swims, and then 5 12 and under swims, and keeping the current pool rental. So with that scenario, based on the 2 models, we would be looking at kind of operational revenues of $301,854, operational expenses of $419,015, or a cost recovery of about 72%. That's on the low end of the 3% model. The high end, high revenue, when I say high end, high revenue loss end, 8% and 5%. 291,072 for the revenue. Expenses are the same, and a 69% cost recovery. The 6 p.m. Model, everything's the same except closing at 6 p.m. Under the 10% model, 287,756 for operational revenues, operational expenses 398,470, or 74% cost recovery. The 15%, the high end of that model, 273,235 for revenues, expenses being the same, a 70% cost recovery. So that's an operational cost recovery. So one of the things we examined in the pre-meeting was, what are we spending per swimmer based on the admission? So that's what the next table is for. If we looked at it with operational expenses only, going through each of these models, you can see the layout of the land. Kind of 868 is what we spent just looking at expenses this year. And again, operational expenses. So under each model, you have 753, 793, kind of that 7 p.m. Model that we talked about above, and then 753 and 796 for that 10-15% model for closing at 6 p.m. As we move across that chart, you can see if we do a revenue offset, operationally, when you look at it just operationally, it looks really good. I mean, you're spending $274 this year on each admission, $211 is projected, or $242 under the 7 p.m. models, $197 or $238 under the 6 p.m. models, and then added back in with debt service, and with debt service and revenue offset are the 2 following columns. Are there any questions about that? All right. So a few alternatives before you. The governing body can approve and may approve and amend the hours to closing Garden Rapids at 7 p.m., closing the season prior to the start of USD 457, amending the events to 5 adult nights and 6 night swims, and 5 12 and under swims, and keeping the current full pool rental times. Alternative 2, the governing body may approve the amendment of hours to closing Garden Rapids at 6 p.m., closing for the season prior to the start of USD 457, amending the events to 5 adult nights, 6 night swims, and 5 12 and under swims, and keeping the current full pool rentals times. Or the governing body may approve any other combination of those. The governing body may deny all amendments and continue to operate on currently approved schedules. Staff recommendation is alternative 2, amending the hours to Garden Rapids to close at 6 p.m., closing for the season to prior to the start of USD 457, amending the events to 5 adult nights and 6 night swims, and 5 12 and under swims, and keeping the current full pool rental times. So just for the 2023, the fiscal note on this, the 2023 approved budget has $418,000 in earned revenue and $750,000 in operational expenses. And that is a cost recovery of approximately 61% projected in the budget.
There's a lot of work. I mean, I really appreciate the work and the detail that went into this. And I'm leaning toward the 6 p.m., knowing that, keeping staff there, and also, you're out in the heat, all day long, and especially the heat, and our summers are sometimes not very kind. I don't know how many days over 100 we had, but then also understanding that it's staffed by young people, and so they have energy to do things after they work. And so, knowing that, you'd also free up some nights. But then there's also additional opportunities for them to make dollars through the swim lessons and those things. So you can actually work as much as, you really want to. But, I mean, I see that the idea of making sure that you keeping the pool staffed and then, really fulfilling the promise, with the facility especially. I mean, it's a great facility, and it's so well kept, so.
Any questions for Aaron?
I was actually leaning towards the 7 p.m. until because I thought about, the parents at work and get home and maybe want to get a couple of hours in at the pool. But then when I was looking at the charts, and I looked and saw just how far down that attendance goes or drops from that 6 to that 7 p.m. time, and I thought that's quite a significant
Keep in mind
drop.
that's admissions, not attendance, so it doesn't necessarily count how many people are in the pool at that time.
Right, but I'm just saying that, looking
showing up at that
yes,
time.
yes. And so, I looked at that, and then I was also thinking about if you add the night swims and some of the other things that would maybe make up for the fact that you're closing at 6 o'clock, except for those Fridays or when you have those special events, or, if they wanted to do that could potentially make up for that. So I would be fine with either, with 6 or 7.
And just for some clarity, Saturday, we would still operate till 8 p.m.
Right.
So,
Aaron, when we close at 8 or 7 or 6, when does the whistle blow to clear the pool?
10 minutes ahead of time has been
Okay.
what's been asked. To be completely transparent, I'm sure it's gotten blown before 10 minutes. So I think moving to this type of model, we would be anticipating that whistle blows at 6.
But it does take people time to clear out of the pool. It's not, you can't really leave until everyone's gone. So I know there are people who stay, it's quite a process. 20 to 30 minutes afterwards, you're still, people leave, so.
True. I think the compromise is if we're going to say our operational hours are till 6 p.m., you can swim till 6 p.m.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. And I think having a facility like this, part of what we're doing to make sure we're optimizing is being flexible and try different things.
Yeah,
And
I think so.
I mean, we make this decision this year, and it works, it doesn't work, we do something next year, and until we get what we feel is a perfect mix of times for public and times for parties and events and all that kind of stuff. So
I'll make the motion to approve alternative number 2 as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion about that? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. Good work by you and your staff.
Yes, a lot of
good information.
That's a lot of numbers.
There's a lot of options. How do you turn those?
I know.
Item H, the governing body is asked to consider and approve 3 appointments to the Airport Advisory Board. Rochelle?
Good afternoon. Like Matt said, we do have 3 appointments for the advisory board. Currently, we have 3 members of Blair Loving, Tyler Dynas, and Aaron Anderson that are serving. All 3 have expressed interest to serve again. Aaron Anderson is completing his first term, so he is eligible for a reappointment. Tyler Dynas and Blair Loving are finishing up their 2nd term. So for them to be appointed to the board, there would be a resolution a waiver to Resolution 2196 for them to be reappointed to the advisory board. With that, we do have 12 applications on file. We've reached out to all 12 of those applicants and received responses from 6 of them. One of them declined interest as he is serving on another board. The other 5 members that responded that are still interested in serving are provided. Their names are provided as well as their applications. Current advisory board members also consist of Charlie Robinson, Carmen De La Torre, Michael Richmeyer, and Jet DeSalvo. And their terms of expiration are presented as well. The staff and Airport Advisory Board recommend the approval of the appointment of Aaron Anderson and the waiver of Resolution 2196 to appoint Blair Loving and Tyler Dionysus to the Airport Advisory Board. The main point of that is they've all been heavily involved with the airport terminal project and are really invested in that and would like to be considered for reappointment and that waiver of 2196. You do have alternatives to do any combination of whatever you like, basically. So that is presented. If you have any questions on that, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
And I think normally we'd like to get some new candidates on just because we don't want to turn anybody away and them not reapply at a later time. But
Right.
with this project, I think it is kind of unique with them being involved at the first
I do too.
of this project and kind of see that come, finish out with
Yes.
those same individuals. So
Is that a motion?
I would motion to, yes. I would motion to approve the advisory board recommendation approval of the appointment of Aaron Anderson and the waiver of the resolution number 2196 for the appointment of Tyler Dinas and Blair Loving to the Airport Advisory Board.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
And can I hold on for a second? There has been some rumor that should have happened a couple days ago, but obviously didn't, and it coincided with the larger jets getting in, where there's been talk around the community that American Airlines was leaving Garden City. Could you make any comment on that? It
Sure.
did, the timing of that was
Yeah.
exactly the day that we were switching to a larger jet.
Yeah.
So-
So American Airlines still provides service to the Garden City Regional Airport. They do have a contractor, as they do with most other smaller cities, that it is a different brand that is providing that service. Previously, we had Envoy, now we have SkyWest, but it's still all American. The airplane, the flight attendants, how you purchase, everything is American Airlines. The contract with the DOT for the Essential Air Service is American Airlines, so it's American Airlines.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So how is that going?
It's going well, yeah. The flight has not been sold out yet, but passenger loads are good. Between Christmas and Thanksgiving, the loads kind of get a little bit smaller, but they'll start getting heavier right before Christmas through the new year. So this is typically kind of a lighter load situation, but the flight's going well. They landed on the day, what was it? Whatever day it was. It was super windy on the crosswind runway. Took it like a champ, no question. So it was very impressive.
Wow.
They're-
So are
so
these-
far, it's been really good.
Are these the 90-seat, someone said 90-seat planes, and I said
65.
65,
Yep,
okay,
it's
yeah.
CRJ 700 and it's 65 seats. Yep,
It's great.
all right.
Good job.
And how's the terminal coming along
Great.
while
it's-
you're here?
Yeah.
That looks really good.
Yeah, they keep progressing very efficiently and very impressively, I guess. Every day looks different. They're doing a lot of ductwork right now, a lot of roofing, getting ready to put the subroof and then the full roof on. They're going to try to get it all enclosed temporarily for the winter so they can work on the interior and then complete the exterior when it gets a little bit warmer. So it's going really well. And if you haven't checked out the airport's Facebook page, there's a great video of the second view from the restaurant that will be able, everybody can go up there and check it out once we get open.
Awesome.
And the completion is in 2023?
Yep, phase 1 is expected June of 2023.
Be cool.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 12I, the governing body is asked to consider and approve an appointment to the Planning Commission. Lucia?
Mayor and Commissioners, the Planning Commission is a 9-board member and has 1 city representative appointment, Beverly Schmitz-Glass. Her current term as a city representative is set to expire December 31st of 2022. This is a term that she filled, so it wasn't a full term, or this was her full term, and she would like to serve as a second term. Below are the citizens that have expressed interest in serving on the Planning Commission. And the alternatives are you may approve Beverly Schmitz-Glass for a second term, you may appoint one citizen from the above listed, or you may leave the vacancy and solicit interest in serving on the Planning Commission. And the recommendation would be to approve Beverly Schmitz-Glass for a second term.
I move to approve Beverly Schmitz-Glass for a second term on the Planning Commission.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to approve Beverly Schmitz-Glass for a second term. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Item J, the governing body is asked to consider and approve filling 2 expiring terms on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Alicia.
Mayor and Commissioners, once again, the Board of Zoning Appeals is a 5-member board that has 2 terms that are expiring. Sean Collins and Ronaldo Mesa have terms that expire December 31st of this year. Ronaldo has expressed interest in serving a second term. And then below, we have 2 applicants that expressed interest in serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Your alternatives are you may reappoint Ronaldo Mesa and 1 citizen from the above listed. You may appoint 2 citizens from the above listed, or 3, you may leave the vacancies and solicit for interest in serving on the Garden City Board of Zoning Appeals. And the recommendation was to go with alternative 1, reappoint Ronaldo Mesa and 1 citizen from the above listed.
Alicia, is Mr. Collins' is his second term expiring?
This would be his first term. He just did not have interest in serving again, as he also serves on our Planning Commission board.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to reappoint Ronaldo Mesa and Isaac Ascosta for the board.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item K, the governing body is asked to consider a late application for the Neighborhood Revitalization Program on behalf of Higher Grounds LLC, doing business as Scooter's Coffee, for the address at 601 East Kansas. Danielle?
Good afternoon one more time, Mayor and Commissioners. Last item before you for me. This item, like Matt mentioned, is a late application for our Neighborhood Revitalization Program. According to the criteria of that program, the applicant must complete an application for a tax rebate within 180 days of issuance of a building permit. A building permit for Scooter's Coffee located at 601 East Kansas Avenue was issued on April 2nd of 2020. The project costing $200,000 does meet the minimum investment requirement of $10,000 to qualify for the program. The project has been completed and the property received a certificate of occupancy on June 2nd of 2020. We went back over the last 10 years, and there have been 4 late requests for the neighborhood revitalization programs brought before the governing body for consideration. The first one was in 2013. The governing body approved an application for a remodel of a multifamily building located at 704 North Main Street. That application was turned in 78 days late. Then in 2017, the governing body denied an application for a new residential home located at 2324 North 11th Street. That application was turned in 66 days late. Then in 2020, 2304 East Mary for a residential or for a commercial remodel was turned in 3 days late, and that request was approved by the governing body. And then earlier this year, in 2022, the governing body approved an application for a single-family home located at 212 North 13th Street. That application was turned in 66 days late. So two alternatives before you this afternoon. The first is to approve the proposed request to submit a late application for the Neighborhood Revitalization Program, or to deny that request. Staff is unable to make a recommendation as it relates to this, as it exceeds the guidelines for the Neighborhood Revitalization Program that we currently have in place. Fiscal note, you can see there, related to alternative 1 would be 95% of the increase in annual property tax would be rebated back to the property owners for the next 10 years. There is no fiscal note related to alternative number 2. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have related to this. And I don't believe the applicant is here.
So this is over 600 days late, or?
Yes, it's over 2 years late.
Donnie Huber, the owner of Higher Grounds LLC, had indicated he wouldn't be able to be here today, but had reached out to us over the break to get this back on. I think in alerting you to the change in the memo, we gave him a choice if you can go 2 weeks later than this and be here, or go now and not be here. He figured he was late enough and wanted to put it on the agenda. So just ask that, one, let you know his interest in the program is the first project he participated in. The second project he did not acknowledges he didn't turn the paperwork in time because of some other projects going on. So anyways, he wanted me to kind of give that explanation to his lack of attendance and his reasoning for asking for it. I think in alerting you to the change in the packet, I transposed the Kansas Avenue property and the campus and Marion property as to which one was first and which one was second. But not surprisingly, Danielle's packet item stuff is right. It's the 601 that he's requesting the NRP program.
I mean,
I would have loved to hear from him because I think, he participated before, so.
it's just, I mean, the permit was issued of April of 2020.
Right.
And we're now we're in the middle of December of 2022. I mean, that's my problem with looking at approving this application or request.
Yeah, I kind of have the same issue. I mean, at what point is too many days? I mean, I can see the 78 days late or the 60 days or even the 3, but this is way beyond that. I mean, it's years past that date. So for me, I struggle with it.
Yeah, I appreciate him making the investment in
I do
Garden City,
too.
and I think the location is really well done, and I mean, he keeps his property incredible. I mean, so that's the thing that's hard for me also, but I think this, knowing that he had participated in it before, so he knew, that there was a timeline, and, and I, like I said, I really appreciate that we have these programs available, but I mean, there are some deadlines and those requirements to make this work, so.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we not approve the proposed request submitted to submit the late application for the Neighborhood Revitalization Program.
Second.
All right, there was a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
I think that has everything, but we bounced around a little bit, so are all your items checked?
Yeah,
Okay.
all of mine are checked.
All right, I think that brings us to the consent agenda, so if nobody wants to remove anything from the consent agenda, the appropriate motion would be to approve items L1 through 4.
I move to approve consent agenda items L1 through 4.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
All right.
Yay.
I believe we are on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Weiler.
I'll keep it sweet. It's been a while since we've had a long meeting like this. So, I wanted to thank Trent and his staff for the great pre-meeting, very informative, well thought out, lots of options to consider and think about. And so thank you guys for putting together a very nice presentation. And I look forward to the recommendations coming soon, well, one of these days. And also just a congratulations to the 10-year and the 20-year employees who have been here. I mean, I just think it says a lot for the city, you know, when you can employ or be employed for that many years and to have so many at the 10-year and the 20-year. And Matt, congratulations on 20 years of service here at the city. Wanted to thank the Historical Society for the commission lunch yesterday. It was very nice to be able to, you know, get to see what the Historical Society has been up to over the last year, but then also to have fellowship and lunch. And it was, you know, of course, very well made, and I enjoyed being a part of that. And then the light parade, thanks to everybody who participated in that and put that on. It was a beautiful night. I mean, we could not have asked for beautiful weather. It made up for last year's 80-mile-an-hour wind that came up towards the end when we had trees as projectiles down the street. So it was really quite nice, and I enjoyed the night for sure. And that's all I have.
All right. Commissioner Runner.
Well, I wanted to say congratulations to you for all of those with the 10 and 20-year service. It speaks, as Commissioner Early said, it speaks a lot to not only the blessing it is to us as a community to have you and your expertise stay around, and hopefully that it really encourages others to spend that many years. I know that that was exciting to see. And then also, Matt, I didn't realize 20 years had already passed, so that's exciting. Congratulations. I also attended the Christmas parade. That was a lot of fun. As Commissioner Oler said, the night was absolutely perfect. I could not believe how many people were out, you know, and so hopefully all the kids got tons of candy. It was really hard to meter it out. By the time we got to Fulton, I was like, okay, we got to stop giving away candy because there was like, I mean, how many more blocks of Main Street? But it was a lot of fun, so I really enjoyed that. I was also over Thanksgiving, I spent some time out of town, and I never realized how many great sidewalks we have in Garden City. So for all of the sidewalks we have, thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, this community had no sidewalks. We had to walk in the street the whole time. You felt like you were going to get run over. And we have a new dog who likes to pick up trash in the street, so it was very, very, very frustrating. But I mean, the sidewalks in our community, I just really appreciate that, which really encouraged me the emphasis that we're placing on trails and those in the parks. And I know that we're doing a lot with sidewalks also. So I always, you always think about the things that you should comment on and make sure that you say thank you. So I just want to say thank you for the sidewalks, and they are really well used in our community. I'm excited about all of the great things that are happening in Garden City. And I mean, I know this is a busy season. You have to pick and choose, but there are so many great opportunities to be. I know that, and in Christmas is December 25th, so it's coming up. But there's so many opportunities, and just remember to spend time with family, because that's one thing. It was really fun at the Christmas parade. All my family in town was here, so that was really fun, and to spend time together as a family doing something really enjoyable. So that's it.
All right. Commissioner, I believe Ortiz. Nope, Cessna.
Me?
That's what happens if
Okay.
That's what happens if I go for my Marine Silicon paper.
Again, I kind of echoing the other commissioners, but congratulations to all the staff that have served 10 and 20 years. It's great to see your dedication to our city and our community, and it's great to see that many people in our ranks hit those milestones. So congratulations. I also want to congratulate Danielle representing us at a state level. That's pretty awesome, and kind of helping to guide and navigate and give your input from Garden City's perspective. So congratulations on that. Like I did mention earlier in the meeting, the sales tax report, really pretty awesome numbers that we're seeing this year. And then Rochelle kind of mentioned it, but great to see the CRJ 700 landing and taking off at the Garden City Regional Airport, and the terminal, progressing very well. Match day was held last week, I think, if I remember right. Over $720,000 raised for our community organization. So great seeing that, people giving back to our community and those organizations that help move and drive our community forward in a positive direction. Been doing a lot of traveling lately, and it's really cool. You know, you go through, my family and I have been through, going through and seeing the downtown areas of different communities, and then we drive through our downtown area in the evening, and it's just amazing, the lights and how festive, and it has that real picturesque downtown feel. So great job to all of our departments that strung all the lights, and especially like Stevens Park when it's lit up. It's really a great downtown, and it's a really good feeling when you drive through our downtown area. And that's all I've got.
All right, now Commissioner Ortiz.
Didn't leave a lot for me.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
An echo for, the congratulations on everybody's milestones here with the city, and what a great group of people that just invest their time and efforts in the city, and we appreciate them and their families as well as they support them from home. So with them having to be out in all this nasty weather and things like that, putting up decorations and taking them down and whatnot, but we appreciate them very much. I think I'd like to just also give thanks to the Southwest Kansas Coalition on the information that was put into that document. That, to me, for us to just point out those big issues, those big items that are needed here in Southwest Kansas are a big impact on the future of what's to come for Garden City. So I was glad to see that daycare was in there as we struggle with that now in our efforts to kind of just have that available for our families here in Garden City. So hopefully we'll see that coming here soon with some options and some possible solutions for those spots that need to be available for our kids. But also the developments, projects that are going on in Garden City, we appreciate those people who are investing in Garden City, making it happen, making Garden City grow. And with that, I think as leaders, we've gone through past leaders here at the commission, city commissioners, who have pretty much put those in place for us to have those milestone steps and position us into a spot where we could look forward into that future and put in place these professionals that we have on staff here to look at those growth efforts and things like that as Garden City grows. So thanks to the Public Works Department as they look at infrastructures and power needs and water needs and all of that. So also with the meeting that we had this morning on a pre-meeting with the codes, there's a lot of things that go into these efforts, and with the professionals that we have on staff here, just I'm intrigued by all of their efforts. I'm just at awe with everything that they know, and everything with finance that goes on, with media, and just there's a lot of components that move along. Council, I'm sure we keep her very busy, so thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, I can just go down and down the line on all of these folks, but I think the main part is just the professionals that we need to attract for Garden City looking to the future. The fire station's coming up. The airport is getting done. There's offices that are growing, banks that are being built. A lot of things are coming, so I just look forward to that, and I'm glad to be a part of that. I'm also thankful for the Historical Society gave us an appreciation feed with a chili feed, and it just goes right back in circle to them. We appreciate them on their artifacts that they are, donated artifacts, how they have to, just take care in those artifacts and then display them for viewing for our public. And, it's just amazing on the efforts that they go through to make that happen there. With our help, with their help, it just makes Garden City that much more enjoyable to, just learn about the history and then learn about the future as we go forward. So Downtown Vision board there, they put on that, the parade was awesome. It was well attended. The weather cooperated. So Parks and Recs, I mean, we don't have enough rain here, but I think with the way they keep, the parks up, clean and picked up, and the efforts that they go to keep those looking nice, they still kind of look, to me, they still look green. I mean, the grass is still kind of green to me. So, but they do an amazing job. So, but yeah, just give thanks to Laura Tapia too. She's she did an amazing job on just keeping those records in line, and then, you know, showing that to us this morning was great. So appreciate her efforts as well. So I think that's about it. Other than sports, but I won't go into that. We know K-State's playing Alabama in the in the Sugar Bowl, so you guys know about that. So that's all I got.
Man, you really nailed out the last of
Shout out.
everything I had.
No,
I was gonna hang on to the K-State thing.
Well, I could throw in Garden City Community College. You got to attend their basketball games. Both men's and women's games are great to go to. So check them out too to support those kids out there.
All right. Well, that does cover literally everything that I was going to say. I guess I could throw in there that KU is making to a bowl game, which for football is a feat for them. It's good. Okay. Quickly just going through, congratulations, Danielle, for the selection. Thanks to Aaron for all the work. 2 big items in here, plus more things that he's working on with the other studies and things like that. So thanks to all the work for you and your team that you're doing with this. Like Commissioner Sessa said, over $700,000 raised during match day, which is tremendous for our community. There's a lot of organizations, I believe 46 organizations that goes between, and so that's a big number for some of those. That's the difference between able to provide programs and not in some of those cases. Great downtown parade last Sunday. That was great. Pre-meeting was really good. A lot of work that went into that, and got some good conversations and maybe some good direction forward to maybe streamlining some processes and maybe saving some costs while we're at it. Congratulations, everybody, on the work anniversaries. Everybody said that already, but that, I mean, that's one of those things you can't say thanks enough to your employees, especially the good ones that are really in this for their career. We do really appreciate that dedication to our community, because that does make a difference. Like Commissioner Sessa said as well, that sales tax numbers coming in really well. It looks like right now that we will be over $1 billion in total sales for our community, which is one of those threshold numbers that when we're talking to other communities or other companies about why you would want to build in Garden City, that's an easy, quick number that we can relay to other people that will make our community even more attractive in the future. And then the final thing is I won't be here for this next meeting, so I guess this is my time to say Merry Christmas to everybody. So thanks for everybody's work, and make sure, like Commissioner Ortiz said, spend time with friends and families. Remember to reach out to those that have lost loved ones to make it easier for them this year. We've had a really good 2022, and I believe we're going to have even better 2023. So with that, we will close. Thank you.